Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about what I consider to be healthier diets for athletes. And I think this becomes really important as we get older. Someone like me who's a strength athlete, coach, everything in my late 40s. This is the sort of stuff I have to think about. And a lot of it has to do with just controlling inflammation in the body. And that's the idea that generally you want to build your diet around meat, dairy, fruits, vegetables, nuts. Right? This is generally what we should be eating. Okay? And, some people say, well, what about whole grains? Well, I'm not even saying whole grains are unhealthy. They're not. But if we're talking about really maximizing health based on the data we have, controlling inflammation, things like that, we would simply do better using the fruits and vegetables for our carbohydrates than whole grains. Right? You'll simply do slightly better if we were to look at all the data that we have. It's not to say that, you can't do the chicken, brown rice, and broccoli type bro dieting. You certainly can. And most people will probably be fine. But again, if we're talking about really maximizing things, and this is direction I would lean in. And no, I'm not a fan of flexible dieting, and if it fits your macros or any of that, because I don't think that eating junk food is necessary. I don't think it's necessary for us to be happy or fulfilled. I think the obsession with it is the cause of most of our disease in America. Right? It's obesity related. And we're talking something like 70-80% of the diseases, the chronic diseases that we have like in this society are due to obesity and junk food, right? All these things. Most of our cancers, almost all of our diabetes other than type 1, cardiovascular disease, it's all these things. And people say, well, it's calorie excess. Well, that is part of it. But even blood work doesn't look the same when calories are the same if based upon what you eat. And it's not just about nutrient deficiencies. It's about the way we absorb different things, the impacts they have on the body. All right? Fructose, for example, it affects us very differently depending on how processed it is because we absorb it differently in our gastrointestinal system depending upon how refined it is. It depends on whether you're absorbing it in the upper intestine and then the liver has to process it to make it into something useful, to make it into glucose, versus if your gut flora is doing most of that for you. So yeah, even that matters in that context. And fruit is fine in that regard. It is almost impossible to get an unhealthy load of fructose from fruit. I mean, you could in theory, but you'd have to really work at it. Just because of the ability of our gut to convert that fructose into glucose for us, as it stays in there longer. But the only time I even recommend, people do refined foods might be occasionally for a social event or a cheat day. It shouldn't be something you're doing every week. Or for some of my hard gainers who really struggle to gain weight. Okay, because that's really the only real use for this is people who have absurdly high calorie needs. And I get that. And, we can make the case for that for certain extreme athletes, but that's not going to be 99.9% of you. Most of you are not competing in powerlifting and triathlons concurrently, in the same year. So again, a little bit different. You're not training 6, 7, 8 hours a day. So you don't have generally those needs. And usually I would even tell my lifters who struggle to eat enough, like rather than too much refined foods, why don't you just add more nut butters? That's your easy solution. Full fat dairy, higher fat meats, add nut butters. In other words, full fat Greek yogurt, mix some natural peanut butter, natural almond butter with it. It's easy to hit your calories then. Very, very easy. Without resorting to, a bunch of refined oils, refined sugars, things like that. But that aside, this is if you look at the foods that I named and you go look at the sum data, those 5 food categories have been found to have the lowest levels of cardiovascular risk. And I'm not talking about when I say that people, you're saying eating bacon or massive amounts of fatty meat. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's leaner cuts of meat. In some cases, lower fat dairy if you need to, again, to control calorie intake. That stuff has all been correlated with that. But in fact, some fattier dairies have been positively correlated with improving heart health, like cheese, even full fat yogurts. That's what the research says. All right, that's what the research says. But these foods are going to give you what you need. And if we're looking to control things like inflammation, and in that case, maybe you want your fat a little lower, so you eat leaner cuts of meat, fat-free dairy, stuff like that. That's fine. You can get your fat from nuts, get your fat from fish oil, things like that. All right, controls inflammation. Fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables. There's also your big inflammation control. Right? This matters. Inflammation control matters for recovery from training. It matters for tendon health, injury prevention. Same thing with the protein intake. Too many people out there, I see a lot of guys who they do not get sufficient protein. And if you're overtraining, if you're pushing towards overuse injuries, particularly us masters lifters, higher protein intake helps. It helps with connective tissue recovery and repair. Okay? This is where we get injured, is when tendons rip. All right. This is where the animal source proteins matter. This is where they matter. They matter a lot here because of the much higher bioavailability, the ease of getting more high quality protein in, adding to your total amino acid pool, because it's also the point of how much protein can you physically get in. It's harder to get in plant protein in general, number one. Number two, lower bioavailability. All right, I personally, these days, time of making this video, I try to get 250 grams of animal source protein a day. Even though some people are looking at what I eat sometimes and they're like, well, it looks really plant-based. Well, not really. I mean, I'm getting 1,000 calories of animal protein a day. I eat very large amounts of fruits and vegetables. Staple in my diet. But this is what we should be eating. This should be the basis of our diet. And anyone who says, well, that doesn't taste good, you're telling me eating a salad with lean meats, or steak and fruit, Greek yogurt and fruit, right? Steak and peanut butter. You're telling me that these things don't taste good? Are you serious? Things can taste delicious. You guys have desensitized taste buds. And that's what people forget too, when they say this stuff, well, these things don't taste as good. It's just, well, do it for a couple months and they will. Your taste buds have been desensitized by the hyperpalatable frankenfoods that you're being fed. That will actually change over time. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.